Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. This video is for anyone who struggles with panic attacks or has struggled with panic attacks and wonders if they're going to come back around. This also will be helpful if you struggle with anxiety, even depression, but in particular, panic attacks. In this, I'm going to show you the deeper side of panic attacks and the side of them that once you understand it can help you actually grow from it, be able to escape from the clutches of panic attacks, the fear that they'll happen again, and understand how to use panic attacks themselves as a tool for spiritual growth. What if panic attacks aren't just chaos, aren't this terrible sensation we feel? They're something more than that. Yes, they are that. But what if they're actually a call from our deepest self, a call from our deepest self to come home because we've gotten off track? The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung said that the greatest burden a child can bear is the unlived life of its parents. For most of us, if not all, that's where panic attacks begin. It begins by us going down the wrong road and realizing we've taken the wrong turn. Panic attacks are a wake-up call that tells us we're out of alignment with our deepest self. They're a call to come home. So we're going to talk about triggers a little bit, but more important than triggers, we're going to get to causes. Triggers of panic attacks, if you've had one or if you think you've had one and you're not quite sure, if you've had the darkest sensation you can imagine and have the sensation of wanting to run from wherever you're at, even if you're alone, probably a panic attack. But the triggers can be anything. Oftentimes when we have a panic attack, we won't know what caused it. It could be you're doing what you do every single day, so nothing's different, and then suddenly it clicks. It could be just a thought in your head and you don't remember afterward what it was. It could be something that's more obvious, like you're in a familiar town, you see a familiar car, you smell a familiar perfume or cologne. It could be anything like that. But the really important thing to remember is the grief, where it comes from, not what triggers it, but where it comes from. See, panic attacks, they're built off of grief, the unresolved stuff inside of us. It can be job loss, loss of a friendship. It could be a breakup, a divorce, pressure at work, stuff that gets locked in. But when it breaks open, it feels like it tears open with these panic attacks, even though we don't necessarily know that's what it's about. The great poet Rumi said, "The wound is where the light enters us." And in this case, that's entirely true. It's that opportunity in that moment when you understand what a panic attack is and the opportunity that it's giving you versus the dread that it's leaving you with, where the opportunity lies there. So we're going to dive into that right now. So the first thing you want to do after having a panic attack and relaxing is pause a moment and ask yourself, what's out of balance? What's out of balance in my life? The original quote I shared about from Jung about the unlived life of our parents. For many of us, that's what it is. We've been told this is who we're supposed to be. We're going down a road. We're doing the thing that we're supposed to do. We're trying to live that life that our parents told us we were supposed to live, whether it was to marry a particular person, to do a particular job, to, have the kind of life that we've been conditioned to have. And when our bodies, when our psyche, when our deeper self, when our soul, dare I say, says, no, this isn't what you were meant to do here. This isn't why you were sent here. This isn't your purpose. We know it on a visceral level, but it's beyond even touching. But it tears us open in this way that we end up with a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And it's the world, your deepest self, saying, this doesn't work. So you have to ask yourself, what's out of balance? What is it that you're doing that's just a grind that you don't want to do? Yeah, I know we can't just throw off our lives and say, I'm not going to do that anymore. But identifying it is step one. When you understand that you're living a life that's not your life, but it's maybe the life of your parents, the one that somebody else expected for you, something like that, it's a step in the right direction because now you can start working away from that, even slowly. But at least you can get to where you need to be, where you feel more in balance, where you feel in touch with your deepest self. So pause and ask yourself, what's out of balance? And then sit down and journal. Journal, give your deeper self, your deeper a voice. Like write down the thing that you desire. What write down the things that you love. Write down that view you had of your life at a very young age before you were told who you were supposed to be or who you are. Write that down. That's going to be the next step in your journey. You see, panic reveals a need for authenticity over others' expectations. Most of our lives, we're living others' expectations, even if it's societies, even if it's not explicitly stated. Oftentimes, like living in the world that we live in, everything's about money. And there's this sort of expectation that success means this amount of money, whatever that amount is, these sorts of things that we buy with our money, this kind of house, this kind of spouse, this kind of life, these sorts of vacations. Are you living your life or are you living the expectations of another? Think about that. Ultimately, panic is your soul shouting, live your truth. Live your truth. It's sort of a flare being fired into a dark cave that is where you reside. It's starting to illuminate it for you. You got to embrace these parts, find healing, ease the panic and anxiety by doing these exercises and by understanding more than anything else, by understanding that that's what's happening here. It's easy to fall into the belief system that I'm having a panic attack and that's a psychological break or whatever it is, and slap a label on it and think, yeah, I have panic attacks. Yeah, maybe you do, but what can you do with them? I've had panic attacks. I think I need to state that here, that I've had panic attacks. I didn't until I was in my late 40s. Never had a reason to, never had one creep up on me. And I had a judgment about it, to be honest. I heard people having panic attacks or anxiety attacks, and I'm like, calm down, relax, man. What you freaking out about? Like I thought I understood. Because, see, again, like most people, I thought panic attacks are this psychological thing. It's deeper than that. Yeah, it can affect you psychologically because there is the mind body connection. And yes, it is in a book somewhere as being some sort of psychological condition, but it's so much bigger than that. That's just a label. And the reason I tell you I've had panic attacks is because I don't have panic attacks anymore. Oh, and they scared the hell out of me. I mean, the first time you have a panic attack, you don't know what it is. It feels the most surreal thing in the world, like the world is coming to an end, like you must run, and there's nowhere to run to because it's all happening in here, right? So I have had panic attacks. So if you're watching this and you're saying, it's easy for you to say, no, I've done this, and that's why I'm sharing it, because this is good work, and it's work that'll reveal you to you, and it's work that will crack you open in a way that nothing else ever has. It'll allow the light to get in there to that space and allow you to become the more authentic version of yourself. Isn't that what we all want, really? Deeper levels of happiness. At this point, I want you to think about the fear, if you're feeling any of that. Pema Chodron said fear is the natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. And that's what happens when we see something like this or anything, name it. Maybe you're not having fear. Maybe you're going, oh, good, this is just what I needed to hear. This is just what I needed to understand, that there's something good for me here versus just this terrible panic, this anxiety, this deep dread that sometimes creeps into your day, right? There's fear sometimes when we go after something, and that's natural. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. And the truth you're moving closer to is the truth of yourself, your deepest self. Pause a moment, breathe, and ask yourself, what truth am I not facing? What truth am I not facing? What do I not see about myself? What is it that I'm leaving on the table? You know, somewhere in your body, who that is you intended to be, what it is, what that thing is in your life that is the trigger. And it'll come to you immediately, and you may want to brush it away, but don't. When you journal, write down every little thing you can think of that could be, and don't disqualify anything for any reason. When you catch yourself trying to disqualify something, that's probably what you're dealing with. That's probably the thing that's bringing you the anxiety, because that's the thing that you've made excuses for the longest for keeping in your life. That thing that brings you misery, but has become such a part of your life that it's just normal. So if you have panic attacks, go after them. You don't have to live with them. They are an opportunity. They're an opportunity to get the light inside that crack when it opens, to do deep work on yourself, do deep work with your world, and to live a much happier life. I don't have panic attacks anymore. And I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. Are the two somewhat related? Yeah. Is that everything? No, it's not. But it's all the work I've done along the way. You don't have to live with panic attacks. So let panic be your guide, not your enemy. Thank you for watching the Soul Pod. If you struggle with panic attacks, if you struggle to figure out what work to do around this, use the link in the show notes below. Schedule a 30-minute free discovery call with me. And if we're fit, I'll walk you through some of these processes. How to go about figuring it out, how to go about changing it, how to go about letting the light in. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next video.